Hi guys, this is Paul again. I've got another new video to show you, and I'm gonna call this Quad Step 288 for DNA twisting and twirling. In my last couple of videos, I've shown a new discovery of mine which I call Quad Step phyllotaxis. After doing more research, I found that this could make a hierarchical system, a linkable hierarchical system. Okay, let's go back to the DNA again. Now in front I show 3 types of DNA, and they're all in sections of 5. Now these sections of 5 can be rotated and linked together to make a longer DNA section. Now this system of 5, which I call Quad Step, can produce a phenomena of 3-dimensional order. Okay, I'm going to focus on bDNA first, which is the simplest. Okay, we'll start with rung 1. Now this rung rotates at 36 degrees to position 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now on the right I show 5 rings in quad step colors. Now if you add another quad step, you'll get 2 red rings together. This is how the groups link together. Now I show 4 angles of quad step at 36 degrees, and this comes to a total of 144 degrees. So I'm calling this 144 degree quad step. On the right I show the rungs with sloping icosas and dodecas. These are the natural slope angles of the vertices and the faces, and they follow the vectors. The slope angle is a very important feature when it comes to 3D helical order. Now I show the yellow helix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 following a right-hand thread. This will be the same with aDNA. Let's take a look. Now you can see that in aDNA the rung angles are different. They follow a sequence of 37.5 degrees, then 30 degrees, then another 30 degrees, and then another 37.5 degrees. Now this is only possible by using quad step. Now if you add the 4 angles together, you get 135 degrees. I call it 135 degrees quad step. Now if you look on the right, I show strings of icosas and dodecas, a left-hand string and a right-hand string. But if you look closely, the icosas and dodecas are orientated different to B-type DNA. Now if you look at the icosa, the faces are following the vertical vector and the vertices are following the slope vector. This is exactly opposite the B-type DNA. Okay, now we can take a look at the Z-type DNA. Now Z-DNA is a lot different. It rotates the spiral in the opposite direction, left-hand thread. Now if you look, we have 2 rotational rung angles, 37.5 and 22.5. I have shown in my earlier videos that the Z-type DNA rotating in the opposite direction is based around the faces of the icosa. Now the icosa has never been mentioned in DNA, but this is real proof that the icosa is involved with Z-type DNA. Anyways, on the subject of the icosa, let's take a look at the rung slope, dodecas and icosas on the right hand side. Now if you look at the icosa, the faces are in the vertical vector and the faces are in the slope vector. This is different to A and B DNA. Now if you look at the slope angle, 19.473 degrees, this is a very important angle for sine waves also. I think I better bring that anim in to show you. Now what you have in front is a 19.473 slope, a Yucatan slope. Now I show a dodeca in front, a size 10 dodeca, and a size 10 icosa. Now the diameter of the colored balls are equal to a size 1 cube, which is 4 angstroms. Now look what happens when I make an anim and give each ball a hierarchical angle of about 3 degrees. We are producing a perfect sine wave between the vertices of the string of icosas. But I guess nobody must contradict the chaos theory. Anyways, I think this completes the Z-type DNA. Okay, I think we've covered the first stage of using quad step for the 3 types of DNA. So now we can say we're going into the second stage, and this is the forming of a nucleosome. Now in my last video on accurate DNA nucleosomes, I showed that the B-type DNA would make a spiral as shown. Now this was achieved by using my quad step hierarchical system. Okay, let's rotate this to a side view. You can see the spiral better. Now notice that the start of the spiral 0 point is not in the center. It's on the edge as I show. Now this is how my hierarchical system works. I'll rotate this back on that center point to the front view again, and you can see it better. Now I did some more research on this, and I found that I can make the nucleosomes better because these rings are too much information and they get too small. So I need to make something that you can see better. Okay, let me show you what I've come up with. In front I'm showing you a string of bDNA of 80 rings. Now I'll give it a start of a hierarchical spiral. Okay, now I'll reverse it back again. Now what I'm going to do is give a ball to every 5 rings. Now let's give it a swirl again, and then we'll reverse it back. So now we can get rid of the rings and use the balls only. Now what I've done doesn't stop there. We can keep repeating this 5-to-1 ball system in a positive direction, very similar to fractals, but fractals goes in the negative direction. I guess the academic system is that you end up as a baby, but quad step takes you in the positive direction, and that gives us 3-dimensional order and not chaos. Okay, looking at this, I've come up with something interesting. Now look at this in front. The larger rings are overlapping, but not the smaller rings. Now I'm going to reverse the animation until the rings are just touching. Now the rings do not show a gap either. So this might be the way that nature controls helical order. And this 5-to-1 iteration is what gives us 5 spirals in space. Okay, let's get back to making a first nucleosome. We'll start with a 9 quad step group string. Now you can see it making the nucleosome, but this one's a little bit different to the last one I showed in my last video. In this one I've cut the linkage in half, and also I'm putting 2 links. Let's take a closer look at this and give it a spin around. I think it's looking pretty good, but this system is uncharted territory. I think a lot of bells and whistles will be added to this system when the software people really gets going. Okay, look what happens when I use this string and make a copy and join the two together. Oh, and most important, they have to be linked together in a hierarchy. So let's give it a swirl. Now this duo nuco is a lot closer together. Now I'm going to make two copies of this string, and then I'm going to link the three strings together in a hierarchy. And let's see what we've got. Now we have a nucleosome hexagon unit. Now let's zoom in on it and give it a spin around to see what we have. Now, like I said before, this quadstep 288 system starts on the circumference of something. Now I've provided a ring and a center axis for you can see what we have. Now when we get back to the start again, you can see the hexagon unit is not balanced around the center axis. Now I'm going to show you an anim of how we can balance a string up. As you can see, when I make copies and rotate them 120 degrees, we are forming a balanced string. It's possible this string could be 72 degrees apart also. So I'm calling this the chromatin 30 nm diameter string. So I think we've come to the end of this stage 2. So now we can move on to stage 3. Okay, now we'll start with the stage 3 of this DNA stuff. So what I've done is make a sphere for each hex unit. So now we'll give it a red, yellow and purple sphere. And now we can turn the opacity up. I think by using a sphere instead of hundreds of pieces of the DNA, it makes it a lot simpler to work out the helical order and the 3D geometry of everything. Okay, these spheres work out at 45 nm or nanometers. Now the book shows the 30 nanometer strings are going into helical curves around 300 nanometers wide. Now I'm only showing a short length for you to get the picture. So I would say that we come into the end of this stage 3, so we can then look at stage 4. Okay, now we can focus on the stage 4, and that is making a spiral for the chromosome. Now this will be a spiral of 700 nanometers diameter. Now you can see in front that I'm started off with 2 sections of quad step, and I'm going around the inside of the diameter. Now I can put the hierarchical angles in manual this way. It's much easier. Okay, now I'll reverse it back to vertical again. Then I can make 2 copies of that string and link them together again. Now each string has got the animation built into them, but each of these strings have to be adjusted slightly on the first ball of the hierarchy. This is because it's called 288, which is not 360 degrees. And this adjustment will probably be compensated in the future by mathematicians automatically. Okay, now we'll reverse this back to a vertical again. So we can double up this 8 quad step to a 16 quad step string. Now you can see how it goes together again. And we'll reverse back. So now to save a bit of time, I'm going to double up to a 32, then to a 64, and then a 128, and I'm going to show you the 128. Okay, here we go again. 128 spiraling around. and I think it's looking pretty good. Now I made a little anim to show this on the side view. Now it looks so interesting, I decided to put a cylinder on the inside to show the coloured balls up easier, because I think we're showing a wonderful arrangement of balls. Now you can see that each coloured ball is going on a twisted spiral. Now I wonder if this slope of the spiral is phi, because we're getting this from quad step, which is a 5-to-1 arrangement. And notice the balls are sloping in a sequence of pairs in the other direction. I think this quad step sequence is a very interesting discovery. It's a pity academics wouldn't take a little bit of interest, but I guess they're quite happy with chaos theory. Anyways, I think I've showed enough in this video. So this is Paul saying thank you very much for the people that are interested in three-dimensional order.